Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our daily get-together here, live on Facebook every morning at 10:30 in the morning, where we get together and take a look at headlines, stories, comments, questions, suggestions, tips, and all kinds of information to help us have a much more fun, better, more inspiring, more creative life, more cultural life here in Puerto Vallarta. If you're an English-speaking person and you live here in town, if you're planning to move to Puerto Vallarta, or if you are a tourist that is truly, truly curious about how we live, how we think, how we work, how we get on with our lives on a daily basis, you've come to the right place. And if you're new to these broadcasts, my name is Paco, and you're more than welcome to let us know that you're new by writing the words "new" in your comment, and we'll be happy to give you a nice welcome. And if you have any important questions, please let us know by adding the letter question, and we will take care of this. We will try to address it during the program, and if not, I'll take a look at it right after the show. Friends from near and far, today we're going to have going on stories, and I see behind, I wonder if my computer's doing it. Let me turn some application off, rather, to make sure that the broadcast runs smoothly. How is everybody doing today? Today we're going to talk things from Cheesegate, which is this crazy information disconnect going on here in Puerto Vallarta between what the cheese-making companies are advertising and what we're buying. We're going to take a look at that. We also have news about Alebrijes, which are these wonderful pieces of art that are made here in Mexico, and the fact that they are now going to be protected from imitations. And we're going to have a little bit of a love letter to Kevin Simpson, who is a local English-speaking person that everybody should get to know. Let me take a quick look at who's in the house. It's always great to see folks like Mike and Geoff and Linda, who always joins us from Yakima. And Sayulita's in the house. Good morning, Val. Minnesota's in the house. This is always wonderful. Boom, beam, 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 beam. Toronto's in the house. Thetis. Oh, Thetis Island. Mornings from Thetis. I was wondering about the pronunciation of that the other day. Thetis. I'm still confused. But Rod, it's nice that you're here. Maybe we'll meet one day and you'll help me out with the pronunciation of your town, or your island rather. Michael, our resident opera singer, is in the house. Michael is in the house. I have new lyrics for new songs for you, Michael. I tell you, I can't wait for that recital. Happy to be here at beautiful Lindomar for 4 weeks. Aren't you lucky, David? Lindomar is such an awesome small hotel just south of the city. I mean, still in Puerto Vallarta. They have this wonderful Sunday brunch. I don't know. I think they're not serving brunch this time nowadays because of COVID, but it's a very, very popular restaurant over the weekends with Mexican families and foreign visitors as well. It's right next to the ocean, so it's a beautiful place to have breakfast. How lucky are you? Boom, pirim, pam, 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 pam. Heather watched the film that we recommended last week. That always makes my day. It is always nice to hear when you actually act on any of the things that we suggest here, whether you enjoyed them or not. It is always good to know that some of the recommendations are worthwhile. Brock is new. Good morning. Just returned to Tacoma. Tacoma. I think the accent is on the second syllable. It is great to meet you, and it is wonderful to know that you had a wonderful week in town. Thank you very much about your comments, Paula. I think we're covering new grounds little by little, and I always appreciate when you folks mention Coffee and Headlines to your friends. Just wondering if we have a cup of coffee or breakfast while watching you. Do you see us as we do that? I don't get to see you while you're enjoying your coffee, that's for sure. But I am very happy to know that you're enjoying your breakfast as you're enjoying the broadcast. This is wonderful. Okay, I see many good mornings. I won't get to all of you because we have things to do. Are the beaches still closed? Asks Heidi. No, the beaches are open. Does anybody know if Palomaria River is clear or muddy? Wanting to go there today while in PV, thanks to Paco. I understand, I suppose, that it's got to be clean because it hasn't really rained in a few days. So my hunch is that it is green, that it is clean and that you'll have a really wonderful time. And if it's a little muddy, it's just dirt. It's really not so bad. So let us get started with the news because we have a few things to cover. Let's go. Okay. We've been looking at the stats from Baja California Sur, the COVID stats. And of course, we know that this state is the one that has the highest number of active cases. And to add to that, we learn about a wedding, a famous actor or an actor, I don't know, a famous but not so smart actor called Armando Torrea got married, and the wedding had about 200 guests apparently. And out of that wedding, 100 people ended up with COVID. And where did this take place? In Baja California Sur, of course. It has now come to surface that there were no protocols, there was no there were no authorization. There was no authorization for the party. And of course, they are now seeing the consequences of this, and so are the rest of us. Meanwhile, Hugo Lopez Gatell, of course, is questioning the states that allow this to happen, whether it's weddings or bars or anything. One of the things that Hugo Lopez Gatell mentioned, and it's got to be a no-brainer if you're paying attention, is, yes, we went through the whole sana distancia mode at the beginning of the pandemic, and then we started getting into the economic recovery mode in the pandemic. But as we have repeated over and over here, nobody said you had to stop wearing face masks. Nobody said you had to stop safe distancing, and apparently this is what's going on more and more, which is truly unfortunate. Here in Puerto Vallarta, this next story that I'm going to show you is something that happens all the time. Apparently, this bus driver allowed 2 students without face masks on the bus, and a lady that was on the bus, complained to him, you shouldn't allow people not wearing face masks. And then she complained to the 2 students that got on the bus, and they started insulting her. And unfortunately, this is what happens. Unfortunately, the city cannot provide for security on board of every single bus. There cannot be a policeman on every single bus, and it is up to us citizens at the end of the day, more often than not, trying to have police situations in the most polite way possible. And again, ultimately, the responsibility is personal to take care of ourselves and those that surround us. The restrictions at the border between Mexico and the United States are continued until the 21st of November, according to this bit of news that I'm looking at here from El Universal. What this means is that if you're driving from the United States to Mexico or vice versa, you better have a really good reason to be driving. You will be stopped, you will be asked where you're going, and if it seems to the people at the border that you're crossing just for the sake of it, they're going to turn you back. So please keep this in mind. I see a quick comment here. I'll get to your comments in a second, but we will be avoiding the buses when we're there in November. Brenda, I don't blame you. I am a big fan of public transportation, and I use it whenever I can, but of course not during the pandemic. Personally, I just don't feel safe riding the bus. I know I have friends that ride the bus on a daily basis, but not me, not me. And Kathleen asks, if they don't have a mask, they can't get on the bus, right? Well, that is correct. At least that's the theory of it. Bus drivers are supposed to not let you on board unless you're wearing a face mask, and that unfortunately seems to happen sometimes, but not always. This other news item comes from Buserias. Yesterday, somebody from Coffee and Headlines contacted me with a video of something going on in Buserias. Unfortunately, the video came from a non-credible source in my book. The video was just a random live that somebody did. They identified themselves as members of a local radio station, and it is an internet radio station. They didn't identify themselves by name. They simply said there was something strange going on in Buserias, and I couldn't really quite tell what it was, and because it came from a non-credible or not a source that I follow, I didn't pay much attention to it. But now it's clear to me that that some residents in Buserias destroyed and removed a barrier in one of the accesses to the beach in public space where it shouldn't have been in the first place. And this is in Cocoteros Avenue in Buserias. I don't know exactly where this is, but I think we're going to see more and more of this behavior where either private citizens or the authorities are going to start paying close attention at developments and hotels and whatnot that are on the beach and that restrict access to the general public. Of course, there are ways to do this, and I'm not sure that just showing up with your own tools and destroying things is the safest or most prudent way to do it, but apparently this is the way it happened in Buserias yesterday. I also learned that United is increasing flights to Puerto Vallarta and other Mexican destinations this winter. They're going to add 19 destinations to Mexico, the Caribbean, and Latin America. And they are increasing flights to some of the most popular beaches in the country, such as Cancun, San Jose del Cabo, and of course, Puerto Vallarta. So if you're planning on flying down on United, they may be having some great sales that you may want to keep an eye on as they reopen these particular axes and routes rather to Mexico. And here's another news item. This one made me laugh. It has very little to do with Puerto Vallarta, but apparently a refrigerator-sized asteroid is approaching Earth the day before the U.S. election, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the popular scientist, apparently said, if it's not big enough to cause harm, so if the world ends in 2020, it won't be the fault of the universe. That was funnier when I looked at the news item. It doesn't seem as fun right now, but what do you know? Let me take a quick look at your comments just to see what we are thinking about. Let's see. We looked at that. Becoming the wild, wild west everywhere. Yes, absolutely. And this is thought-provoking, and this is why I end up spending more time at home now than earlier in the in the pandemic. Vallarta, Heather tells us, clearly the bus driver does not understand COVID, his mask not covering his nose. Well, don't get me started on that one, Heather. You're absolutely right. Louise is also avoiding the buses now. This is unfortunate, but I don't blame you. Again, I am avoiding uh, the buses. Um, Jaime lets us know that the border is not as closed as people want to believe, and I don't know that that's good or bad. That's just what Jaime says. Since I am not driving the border anytime in the near future, um, I'm not really thinking about that. Um, Julie says they call masks cubrebocas, which explains why he leaves his nose out. I don't know this, Heather just ranting. I know you know this, Heather just ranting. Well, I honestly, Julie, don't think that people don't cover their nose because the name we use for it in Spanish is mouth cover. I think they don't cover their nose because it's really uncomfortable to breathe after a while, and I think we know that too. I lower my face mask to uncover my nose when I'm not surrounded by people. If I'm walking out and about, I I I lower my face mask, and I think everybody does. But needless to say, if you are close to someone, if someone is approaching you, if you're driving a bus or you are in your business and the government says cover your fucking face, of course you have to cover the whole thing. Um, Polly is a little bit less concerned. I've been on buses without people in masks. I just keep mine on. Again, it's a personal choice. I don't think going on the buses is a life sentence. I just think that we all have different boundaries, and um, we need to um, respect each other's boundaries, of course, as long as the boundaries are in accordance with the generally understood guidelines. Gigi clarifies that that particular spot in Buserias is between the Royal de Cameron and Flamingos Beach Trail, um, and it can only be accessed by bike or by foot. And now, obviously, people will be able to take advantage of it, hopefully. La da dee da 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 da. Paul reports on people protesting about that water breakwater that we talked about yesterday. Yes, we will have to see who is behind that, Paul. We will have to see if that was uh, a legally sanctioned project or not. But I'm glad to hear that people are protesting because things like that either have to be well explained or shouldn't happen at all. Um, Brock goes all CNN on us and goes, Asteroid 2020. I would like to see that movie. Any indication if security lineups at the airport will be decreased to allow for social distances? I don't know, and I certainly hope they will be. Carol, it is unfortunate because I keep getting reports that the airport, they're not face masking, which doesn't mean you should fly to another city. I mean, you should, again, just take care of yourself. If you see somebody without a mask, just walk around those people. Um, okay, I'm caught up with your comments. Let me continue with what we have here and zoom over to the weather. And here we are. It is 28 degrees Celsius. It feels like 33. We're still in the middle of this heat wave. Fahrenheit, it is 82 degrees right now. We have an 89% humidity, so it's probably going to be really sweaty and hot today. We have a 1% chance of rain at the moment, and the forecast tells us, indeed, that it's going to be humid and partly cloudy with a high temperature of 32. Tomorrow, it'll be humid through the day with light winds with a high temperature of 32. And Thursday, it'll be humid and mostly cloudy through the day with a high temperature of 32. We are all with our fingers crossed here in Puerto Vallarta, waiting for the weather to change, and it just hasn't happened. Hopefully, it'll happen sometime in the near future. Now, let's talk about Cheesegate. Well, Cheesegate is the name that I gave to this circumstance or this situation in which Mexico's Consumer Protection Agency finger pointed some cheese brands in Mexico that were not what they were supposed to be. And this was last week, and a number of brands were removed from supermarkets and other stores until they got their act together. Either they modified their recipes or they were not entitled to the the labels that they were showing, now that the Mexican government is expecting all these brands to have the proper and accurate label according to their ingredients. So now we know that there were several brands that there are 5 brands that are not allowed to be back. 19 brands are allowed to be back in supermarkets. And this article tells us specifically which brands they are. And the article also tells us specifically what are the ones that are not fulfilling their responsibility and why. For example, there is a brand called Precisimo that sells American type cheese. And it's not made of cheese. There is a yogurt called Benegastro that has 2% protein when it should have 3.1%. It's little details like that. So it's not like the articles are poisonous or any way, but in any way. But as the Mexican government is moving forward to try to bring clarity and accuracy to the labeling, this is catching some manufacturers by surprise, and I laugh when we call it almost cheese, and yes, it's called casi queso, or sort of cheese, but that is what I have identified as Cheesegate. It's my very own name. I don't see anybody else using it, but I thought it was funny. You're welcome to agree or disagree. Moving on to something else that is completely unrelated, but I just had to share because we all need to laugh about life from time to time. I found this great headline from Huffington Post: 38 funny things people have learned about partners while working from home. And this is a series of tweets that Huffington Post has collected. For example, Garrett Martin says, "One thing I've learned about my wife since we both started working from home is that she listens to way more yin-yang twins than I ever suspected." How well do we know our partners? Well, apparently working from home is revealing all kinds of unexpected things. You may want to read this on your own time. This is in English. And I don't know if you've noticed, I am now labeling links that I share with you on the show notes. Those that are in English are labeled as such so that you can see exactly what it is about. And those that are in Spanish, in case you didn't know it, you can use a browser like Google Chrome and set it up to automatically translate things when they are in a different language. Moving on to something that has absolutely nothing to do with much of anything, but I thought it was funny, is the fact that scientists have measured time in septoseconds more than a century after Einstein's theory, and a septosecond is the shortest interval of time ever recorded. So I don't know how long a septosecond lasts, but I do wonder how many septoseconds are equivalent to a Mexican mañana, or a Mexican ahorita, or a Mexican ahorititita. As you know, in Mexico, ahora means now. Ahorita is I'm almost there, and ahoritita is almost there, and ahoritititita, and we can add all kinds of tititas to the word when we're almost there. And this is very common here in Mexico. So we don't know how many napto or zapto seconds or whatever those were. What else do we have? Oh, yes, of course. Lord, what was his name? Lord Asperger. Oh my God, he's still giving all kinds of, he's making noise. Lord Asperger, we found out, is a teacher, a college teacher that was teaching a virtual class, and one of his students has Asperger's, and the professor went from being kind to being impatient to being insulting to the student. And as is usual with lords and ladies in Mexico, he came up with his own explainer apology saying, well, I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed with COVID and I live alone and I feel miserable about myself. And this is why I treat my students like shit. And and it's completely irreverent. And it's horrible that there are still teachers in Mexico and he's received a lot of support. He's received a lot of people that were against him, but a lot of people said, well, you forge character when you insult your students and stuff like that. But a lot of people are not defending the teacher. I think it's just unfortunate that it's happened. And I don't think anybody should ever call their students words like stupid or useless or things like that. I don't think you forge character. And if you do, good for you, but that's just not the way I would do things. My father brought me up that way, and I spent a lot of money on shrink power and therapy during my youth to make sure that I understood this. Heather says, speaking of time, here in Vallarta, we need to move our clocks back an hour when we go to bed Saturday night. I am aware of it. I have it on my calendar, and we will be reminding everybody of this as the week gets closer to the weekend. Kimberly is laughing at my reference about Mexican time. She's calling it Mexican time. I love the spelling. I am sure that your dictation machine is taking a break, but I know exactly what you meant. We are known to bend time in many ways here in Mexico. Plumbers and home repair people, people that are supposed to deliver things to your home, contractors that are supposed to finish their work. I mean, they have this absolute power of bending time. Just don't get me started. Here begins my love letter. Yes, and this is important to remember. Thank you very much, Catherine. Of course, we will be out of sync with the rest of North America for a little bit of time. Mexico changes its time whenever Mexico wants to change in time. Its time, and this always brings a little bit of chaos to airport flights and appointments and arrivals and departures. So make sure that you keep an eye on this, and we will be reminding this as much as necessary in the days to come. And now we begin a little bit of a love letter to a dear friend of mine whose name is Kevin Simpson. And we begin this. And if you know Kevin, feel free to say something nice about him. And if you don't know Kevin, you're going to find out more about him. This all starts with this news item that says Alebrijes from Oaxaca receive protection against counterfeit imitations around the world. And if you don't know what alebrijes are these wonderful, hand-painted, whimsical creatures that are usually either made of paper mache or more commonly are carved pieces of wood that are then painstakingly painted by hand with much detail. The very traditional ones are painted with natural pigments, and these are just beautiful, beautiful pieces of artwork. They come from the state of Oaxaca, and we know that these are some of the most traditional forms of art that Mexico has, and they are very, very difficult to make, and the real authentic ones are very, very expensive just because they are labor intensive. Now, this is really awesome because Alebrijes, if you haven't seen them, you can go to shops around town and you can see them on sale in everything from like the market stands that are on the Isla Rio Cuale to more formal, authentic shops like Kevin's shops. And I'm going to tell you what they are in a minute. But I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell because I happen to have my own personal mini collection of Alebrijes. I'm going to switch cameras to this one because this one has better focus when I put things close to the camera. This is my laptop lens, and this is one of my Alebrijes. It's a kitty cat Alebrije, of course, because I am a kitty cat lover. And you can see they're made with a lot of detail. This one is signed at the bottom. Usually the authentic ones have a signature on at some point in some point of the piece. This one is so tiny, so tiny. It's a little kitty cat. Yes. This one is so tiny it doesn't have a signature. This one has a very extensive signature. Comes from the workshop of Jesus y Roman Hernandez, and it comes from Tilcatete, Oaxaca, And it is this gorgeous green rhino. Of course, these are the colors of the house. And I just love these pieces. These are some of my most favorite Mexican crafts. I have this. This is how I feel when I eat my brownies. This is what I feel I look like when I eat my brownies. This is made from by Paula Sanchez. This is just gorgeous. And then I have this creature. I don't even know what this is, but I love this. This is, look at how tiny this is, and look at, I wish you could see all the detail. And I got this from Kevin Simpson, and this is made by oh dear, Jacobo and Maria Angeles. And Jacobo and Maria Angeles are two artists that are shown quite extensively at Kevin Simpson's shops. Now, who is Kevin Simpson? Kevin Simpson is this awesome man. I think he's from Canada. I'm almost certain that Kevin is from Canada. And he has two shops in town. One of them is called Collectica, and I'm going to share the Facebook pages for these before, when the show is over, in the show notes. Collectica is one of the shops, and this one is located in El Centro. And what Kevin and his wife do is they go through. I'm sorry, I was not even showing you the Facebook page. This is a Collectica Facebook page. Kevin and his wife travel through Mexico, and they work directly with the families that make these pieces of art. And these families have been sharing the techniques on how to make these pieces of art for generation to generation. So Kevin is a walking encyclopedia on quality Mexican folk art. If you buy anything from Kevin, you know that you are buying the real deal and not an imitation, certainly not something that is made in China. And this is important to know, because a lot of these pieces that we see at the mercados now, they're actually coming from China. So you don't want to be buying Mexican crafts that are made in another country. Now, Kevin's other shop is called Peyote People, and he has several branches, including a couple. No, he has one in Emiliano Zapata, and he has one in El Centro as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has other locations. I don't know if he has something in Nuevo Vallarta or not. But again, he has an awesome staff in all of his shops. But if you are lucky enough to actually meet Kevin, I totally recommend that you shop directly from him, not to undermine his staff in any way, shape, or form. His staff is absolutely wonderful, but Kevin is just so incredibly knowledgeable. He is fully bilingual. So that is my love letter for Kevin. I see some of you have comments about Kevin. So it is wonderful that some of you already know him, and know his pieces. So again, if you live here, visit with Kevin. If you are visiting Puerto Vallarta and you want to purchase quality Mexican folk art, Kevin's shops are absolutely important. This is a nice endorsement from Heather. And I totally agree with you, Heather. He is one of the most respectful people that I know. Here's a nice shout out for Lucy and Gil, who did this for years as well in Lucy's Cuckoo Cabana. I don't know if they still own the shop. I remember they listed it for sale for some time, and but I'm not sure if they still open. They are at Basilio Vadillo on Emiliano Zapata. Let me take a quick look at some of your comments before we begin wrapping this up. I have one more other headline to share with you. Let's see. I'm so glad that Mushi loves kitty gatos. There are great Alebrijes out there, and they are so much fun to collect. Beautiful creatures. Mike says he loves Kevin's shops and collect pieces by Jacobo and Maria Angeles from Oaxaca. When he invited Jacobo and Maria Angeles, he has invited them a couple of times, and they set up shop at the gallery, and it's just amazing to watch them work. And I've seen at least once or twice that he's brought other artists into town, One of them does paper mache, and I have some of his pieces. And it is just a great way to connect directly with Mexico's heritage. Um, da, 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 da. Another recommendation. Excellent. I am so glad that this worked out for you, Sherry. Let's see. Rosemary Pistilli asks, GM Paco. I don't know what GM stands for, but I like it. Will the outdoor markets be open in PV and Nuevo in the winter months? They have announced that they are. I am sure that they're going to have to be very cautious and vigilant about who's wearing face masks and who isn't. And I don't know if they have specific dates announced just yet. Let's see. Oh, Heather quickly clarifies that Lucy and Gil no longer own Lucy's Cuckoo Cabana. And yes, Sheila says that they were going to retire and sell their shop. This is important and good to know. The original Cookie House is a great place with a very friendly staff. Thank you very much for that. And I have reached the end of your comments, so I want to leave you with one more recommendation for something that is going to happen on the 21st of October. That will be tomorrow. I wrote about this on my personal Facebook page, but I want to show this to you. There are amazing music performers, and then there are amazing music instructors. But very few times are there amazing performers that are also very amazing instructors. And one of those individuals is the incredible Joyce DiDonato. She is a famous opera singer. She specializes in a very specific type of singing that we find in many of the operas by Handel and some operas by Puccini. And she is renowned for doing master classes. Master classes are very common in classical music, and these are opportunities for very talented singers and musicians to have one-on-one learning opportunities with these famous teachers. And Joyce DiDonato's master classes are absolutely amazing because of the way she approaches her teaching and the way she handles the work that she does with opera singers. Now, you're going to tell me, should I be watching a master class for opera singers by opera singers if I don't know opera, if I don't like opera, if I don't enjoy singing? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes, because the way she brings out the best in her students is an inspiration. And a lot of her techniques translate, their lessons in life, because they translate to the way we can, if we set ourselves to do it, we can be the best people we can be. And I am stumbling through this because, I watch her sing and I watch her teach, and she always brings a smile to my face. So I'm going to give you the link to these master classes that we're all going to be able to sit on virtually tomorrow from Carnegie Hall, of course. And let us take a quick look at your final comments before we go. And let's see. Michael, I had you in my mind all day yesterday when I watched the Joyce DiDonato clip about 10 times yesterday, and 10 times it brought a big smile on my face. Heather Wilson helps us clarify what's going on south of Puerto Vallarta in Los Arcos. It turns out that Pinnacle is the developer behind what she's calling the travesty at Los Arcos. Just learned this from a very trusted source. Pinnacle, I don't keep track of who are the good guys or the bad guys in real estate development here in town. But if Pinnacle is doing this, we certainly hope that Pinnacle has all the proper permits and that they obtain the permits in a lawful way. If they didn't, karma is a bitch. I certainly hope that that they're doing this lawfully and rightfully. Anyhow, I hope you all have a super day today. We've reached the end of Coffee and Headlines. I hope you found something inspiring and helpful in today's broadcast. I hope something made you laugh and smile. And I hope to see you again soon. Between now and whenever we cross paths again, I hope you will stay calm, stay kind, stay face masked, stay patient, and best of all, stay in touch. Have a great day.